$30 each. Click, call, or visit a Spectrum store today.
We said we'd never break the 3-second rule. Never do that. And never become a minivan mom.
Hey, Chris.
As parents, we say never a lot, but never happens. So when you say you'd never leave your child in a hot car, know it can happen. Before you leave the car, always stop, look, lock.
Good morning, I'm Bree Driscoll, and here's your Spectrum News in 90. Breaking news in the Middle East, Israel launches a large-scale attack on Gaza overnight, effectively ending the ceasefire. The Hamas Health Ministry says hundreds were killed and hundreds more injured. A Hamas leader says the strikes are a death sentence for remaining hostages. Both sides accuse each other of refusing to extend a ceasefire agreement. President Donald Trump is discussing another ceasefire today, this one involving Ukraine and Russia. He's speaking with Russian President Vladimir Putin about a deal that could involve land swaps and power plants. Last week, Putin said he agreed in principle with the U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire, but Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is doubtful Putin is ready for peace. Today, the White House plans to release 80,000 pages on President John F. Kennedy's assassination. In February, the FBI said it had discovered about 2,400 new records, but it's unclear what additional details will come to light. And mission to Earth. The capsule is closed, and NASA astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore are headed home right now after 9 months in space. They originally planned to stay aboard the International Space Station for about a week. The pair is expected to splash down off the Florida coast this afternoon. And that's your Spectrum News in 90.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your weather on the One's forecast. Nice and quiet across the lower 48 with temperatures staying above the average in portions of the Central Plains. We'll be in the low 80s in Kansas City, 83 in Dallas. Temperatures warming up pretty nicely across the southeastern United States as well. But in the northern plains, we're getting ready for blizzard-like conditions to arrive as we get into the middle of the week. We're going to break down those details and more coming up in 10 minutes on your weather on the Ones.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bree Driscoll, and thanks so much for joining us here on Spectrum News. Today is Tuesday, March 18th. Breaking news, the Israel-Hamas ceasefire is over, at least for now. Israel launching extensive strikes on Gaza overnight, leading to more widespread death and destruction. New video shows survivors walking through the rubble of homes and buildings. The Hamas-run health ministry says more than 400 are dead. It follows weeks of negotiations aimed at extending the truce and freeing more hostages. Spectrum's Angie Gonzalez has more on what could signal the start of a new phase of war.
Explosions were spotted across the skyline Tuesday as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered airstrikes on the territory in the most significant fighting since a ceasefire deal was reached with Hamas in late January.
The bombing has continued throughout the night, but with more space in between those explosions.
According to the Hamas-run health ministry, several hundred people, including women and children, were killed in the attacks. Netanyahu says they were carried out after Hamas rejected a new hostage deal that would have continued the ceasefire.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has been a part of the negotiations on behalf of the Trump administration, and over the weekend said Hamas's counteroffer was unacceptable.
I'm not going to go into the specific details of what made it unacceptable, but it was totally unacceptable. I think there's an opportunity for them, but the opportunity is closing fast.
The White House says it was consulted before the airstrikes took place and voiced its support for Israel's actions. Other countries countries have expressed concern the attacks could mean the return of a full-scale war. Israeli officials say their operation is open-ended and expected to expand.
We don't want to see innocent people suffer. There's already been enormous suffering there.
Hamas says that Israel's new airstrikes have put the fate of the remaining hostages still in their custody in jeopardy. In Washington, Angie Gonzalez, Spectrum News.
As fighting resumes in the Middle East, President Donald Trump is expected to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin about a potential ceasefire with Ukraine. President Trump says swaths of land and a power plant will be part of today's call with Putin.
We're going to have a very important call. You know, we've had calls, but we're getting down to a very critical stage. And we want to get the whole Russia-Ukraine thing done. And I think Ukraine wants it. I know they want it. Everybody wants it.
Last week, Putin said he agreed in principle with the U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is doubtful Putin is ready for peace. There's new fallout over whether the Trump administration ignored a judge's order to turn around deportation flights to El Salvador. The judge questioned the administration's claims that his verbal order did not count as a directive, and officials could not answer questions due to national security issues. The judge saying, quote, "That's one heck of a stretch." The White House says the judge's written order, which was issued 45 minutes after the verbal demand, did not require planes to be returned to the United States. Happening now, 2 NASA astronauts are finally returning home after 9 months in space. It caps a dramatic turn of events with twists, turns, and countless delays. Spectrum's Brianna Foose takes us inside their journey back to Earth.
And undocking confirmed.
A sentence 9 months in the making for astronauts Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore.
Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore begin their belated trip home.
At 1:05 this morning, the pair, along with 2 crewmates, departed the International Space Station on the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule.
It's been a mixed bag of emotions for her.
Angela DiNapoli was Williams' teacher. She's been emailing her as she orbits.
Well, she's a real trooper. They gave her a mission.
Williams and Wilmore's mission was only supposed to last about a week, but NASA had to send the problem-plagued Starliner back to Earth empty because of helium leaks and thruster failures. The astronauts have repeatedly squashed narratives that they were abandoned, stuck, or stranded.
90% of our training is preparing for the unexpected. And sometimes the actual unexpected goes beyond what you even think that could happen.
Like Butch said, there are so many people on Earth that are sending us messages, and it makes you feel just right at home with everybody.
They're on track to spend Tuesday morning and afternoon in orbit. Around 5 o'clock Eastern Time, the Crew Dragon capsule is expected to fire its engines to begin the final phase of the journey. Re-entry.
Then you burn the engines and put yourself into a lower orbit that goes around the Earth faster and allows you to sequence and get to Florida.
Williams, Wilmore, and their 2 crewmates are slated to splash down as soon as 5:57 p.m. They'll be greeted by a SpaceX rescue ship, and Williams and Wilmore will take their first breaths of earthly air in 9 months.
On behalf of Crew 9, I'd like to say it was a privilege to call station home.
Brianna Foose, Spectrum News.
Meteorologist Ramel Carpenter joins us now. Ramel, what does the forecast look like for splashdown tonight?
Yeah, it looks pretty good, actually. We have a good deal of sunshine in the forecast. Our storm system finally worked its way off the eastern coast yesterday, and that sunshine is going to be here to stay as we get towards the evening hours. Temperatures in the middle and upper 70s. Water temperatures in the Gulf are in the upper 60s as well, so you really couldn't ask for better conditions for splashdown later this evening, right around 6 o'clock. Bree?
Ramel, thank you very much. Just ahead, is the U.S. in danger of losing Lady Liberty? Find out what the White House has to say about a recent request.
Weather can be beautiful, inconvenient, and at times powerful. And it affects everything we do. At Spectrum News Plus, our weather experts update you with the information and the context you need so you can better plan your day. And we do it every 10 minutes. We're the calm in the storm. Weather on the Ones on Spectrum News Plus, exclusively on Spectrum. And get your weather anytime on the Spectrum News app.
I really am in the middle of nowhere. Every day is different. Chores, come on, homeschooling, and then I fit in the rug business. I just got a new batch of rugs that I'd love to show you. I have a website, and a lot of what I do is sharing my home life. Mom's leaving. Reliable, high-speed internet is the foundation of our business. Spectrum was great. They went out of their way to make sure that I was okay and I was taken care of. Shoo! And that's the awesomeness of having Spectrum.
You're not good at all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your Weather on the Ones forecast. Started the week off with a cold front working its way off the eastern coast, brought some rain and even some flooding concerns in a few spots in the northeast. Thankfully, we're drying out today and going to stay pretty quiet through the middle of this week. Where things are going to be a bit more active, though, is certainly going to be in the central plains. We've got a storm system emerging out of the Rockies that's bringing some heavy snowfall to some of the higher elevations, and this is going to slowly work its way into the northern plains, bringing some significant snowfall for some areas in Nebraska, Iowa, up into the northern plains as well. So take a look at this. In red, we have blizzard warnings that go into effect at 1 a.m. Later tonight, lasting through the afternoon and evening hours on our Wednesday. Winter storm watches stretch all the way up into the upper peninsula of Michigan. And then we have winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings also in place. So we have another winter storm working its way into the northern plains for the final days of winter. Spring officially starts on Thursday with the spring equinox, and not really going to be feeling like spring across this part of the country, where we're going to be dealing with some heavy snowfall, where we could easily see some snowfall rates over 2 inches an hour, along with winds gusting over 40 miles per hour, which is why we have those blizzard conditions and blizzard warnings in place. This heavy snowfall is going to work its way across the Nebraska region into Iowa, Minnesota, up towards Wisconsin as we get into the afternoon and evening hours. This is on the colder side of the storm system. Also going to be dealing with a low-level threat for severe thunderstorms as well. And then the snowfall works its way up into portions of Chicago, across Lake Michigan as we transition into Thursday morning, but not expecting any significant snowfall for the Chicago region. But where we are going to see some significant snowfall is where we have those blizzard warnings in effect, stretching from Nebraska all the way up through Iowa, Minnesota, into Wisconsin. A swath of snowfall totals where we could easily see 6 to 8+ inches. Locally higher, some spots could get up to a foot of snowfall, especially where those 2+ inch bands of snowfall do manage to set up. Temperatures, though, across the rest of the country, though, should be pretty normal for this time of year, but we do have a risk for severe thunderstorms, and we'll break that down for you coming up in 10 minutes.
And here's a look at what you need to know this morning. Breaking news, Israel launches, quote, extensive strikes on Gaza, effectively ending the ceasefire with Hamas. The White House says Israel notified the Trump administration ahead of the strikes. President Donald Trump says he will speak with Vladimir Putin today about a potential ceasefire deal. The Kremlin has cautioned diplomacy is still in its early stages. And NASA astronauts Sunny Williams and Butch Wilmore are returning home today after 9 months in space. The pair is expected to splash down off the Florida coast pending weather conditions. And that's a look at what you need to know. The death toll has risen to 42 from those powerful storms over the weekend. Tornadoes killed at least 3 in Alabama. Deaths were also reported from North Carolina to Texas. Hundreds of homes and businesses were destroyed throughout the South and the Midwest.
You hear about these storms and then you don't really put the feelings behind it until it hits home.
On Sunday, President Donald Trump said his administration is ready to assist those affected by tornadoes and storm damage. Investigators reportedly confiscate the passport of a man last seen with a student who went missing in the Dominican Republic. Officials say the man visited the beach with University of Pittsburgh student Sudiksha Kunanki in the early morning hours of March 6th. Investigators interviewed him, but he is not a suspect and is not being accused of wrongdoing. He told prosecutors he and Kunanki were hit by an intense wave. Happening today, the White House is expected to release 80,000 pages of files on the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Trump claims all the files would be unredacted. The release fulfills a promise the president made on the campaign trail, as well as an executive order he signed upon returning to office. Last month, the FBI said it had discovered about more than 2,000 new records. It's unclear what new information may come out of the documents. President Donald Trump's top economic advisor is warning of more uncertainty over tariffs. But traders, consumers, and business owners are worried. Spectrum's Kennedy Chase shows us how some farmers in Ohio are coping.
Megan Dressbach is one of many farmers across the state worried about the future of her business. As a farmer for 30 years, working in uncertain times doesn't make the job any easier.
Anytime we have another factor that creates uncertainty, it adds stress to an already stressful occupation.
Her particular farming business is spreading manure fertilizer across different farms using equipment from Canada.
We use equipment that is not manufactured in the U.S. That is just our preference, and due to the tariffs, there is going to be an increase in parts.
According to Dressbach, farm income has on average decreased by 30%, and with the 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada, that will reduce the farmer income even more by 20%, essentially cutting their paycheck in half.
How could you function with a 50% loss in income over the last 3 years?
The Trump administration imposed 25% tariffs on goods from Mexico and Canada and an additional 10% on goods from China. Ty Higgins with the Ohio Farm Bureau says farmers are worried about retaliation from these vital countries.
When you talk about Canada and China and Mexico, those are our 3 biggest trading partners for almost everything we grow in Ohio. In fact, 20% of the farmer income comes from exports. So 1/5 of the farmer's bottom line comes from what we ship.
As uncertainty looms Ohio's agriculture, many farmers are worried about the future, hoping to receive help when the time comes. When we asked Governor Mike DeWine how he plans to help farmers who are nervous, he said this.
As governor of the state of Ohio, I have authority in a lot of areas, and one of them is not tariffs.
As for Megan Dressbach, she's anxiously waiting to see the impact.
With the impact of these tariffs, we will see our parts bill increasing, unfortunately.
And with the North American Manure Expo being hosted in Ohio this summer, Dressbach believes that could potentially be impacted too, because a lot of the equipment is manufactured in Canada.
We don't know if the exhibitors will determine it is not economically feasible to bring down what they have manufactured and show it off.
For Spectrum News, I'm Kennedy Chase.
Lady Liberty isn't going anywhere. That's the word from the White House after a French politician suggested the United States is no longer worthy of the monument. Here's what Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters Monday.
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful.
Leavitt referencing America's alliance with France during World War II. Gifted to the United States in the 1880s, the Statue of Liberty is technically U.S. government property, so it's here to stay. Up next, Under the Sea. It looks like a scene out of The Little Mermaid, but this new jellyfish exhibit is the real deal.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
Starting a business is hard. You have to stay connected at all times.
As we've been growing the studio, Spectrum's been there every step of the way. I'm always able to make the phone call that I need. I'm able to shoot that text message or that email. Every vital piece of equipment that we have here uses Spectrum.
Fast, reliable internet starting at $40 a month, backed by the Spectrum commitment to keep your business connected.
Food isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/act now.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Happy Tuesday, everybody. I'm meteorologist Ramel Carpenter with your weather on the one's forecast. Started the week off with the frontal system working its way off the eastern coast. And as a result of that, we have dry and quiet conditions to look forward to over the course of the day today. Our attention turns out west again, where we actually had some hail reports across portions of northern California, had some thunderstorms in this part of the state, and we're watching the storm system coming out of the Rockies that's going to push into the northern plains as we transition into the middle of this week, which will eventually bring us a threat for severe thunderstorms. Once again, not nearly as strong as it was over this past weekend, but still a threat nonetheless. Level 2 slight risk across Indiana into portions of Illinois, which does include the Chicago region, and a marginal risk in green that stretches all the way down into portions of Mississippi and Alabama. Looks like this is going to be a broken line of thunderstorms that tracks into the eastern half of the country. And you'll notice that on Futurecast, this is also going to have a blizzard-like conditions associated with it on the colder side of the system, and then that line of thunderstorms arrives late Wednesday evening across Indiana, and we'll have to watch for some of those thunderstorms to pack a punch with some damaging wind gusts north of 60 miles per hour. Lots of wind energy in these storm systems this time of year, and this is going to be the case once again. The front works its way into portions of the Ohio Valley late Wednesday night into portions of Thursday morning, where we could see a few gusty thunderstorms here and there as well, but we're not expecting any severe weather like we had last week once again. And then on the colder side of the system, we'll likely see a mix of rain and some snow showers pushing through the Ohio Valley as we get towards the end of the day on Thursday, closing out the week with some comfortable conditions across the northeastern United States. And our temperatures will warm back up pretty nicely throughout the day today in the low 80s from Kansas City to St. Louis, as well as Oklahoma City, down into southern Texas, where highs are going to be in the upper 80s, pushing the lower 90s. Across the southeast, we're getting back into the upper 60s, low to middle 70s in portions of the Carolinas, into northern Georgia as well. But big talking point once again today is going to be those strong winds. I mentioned there's a lot of wind energy in the atmosphere associated with that system. We have high wind warnings in place across the central plains and down into the southern plains wind advisories, where gusts are going to easily get over 30, 40 miles per hour and even 50 plus miles per hour as we transition into our Wednesday and Thursday. You'll notice this is going to bring a risk for some wildfires across the central plains. We had several of those break out over the course of the weekend due to similar conditions. Gusts could easily exceed 50 plus miles per hour in some of those areas where we're going to be seeing some snowfall taking shape as well. Blizzard conditions on the cards, and we have red flag warnings also in place for portions of the southern plains. So probably a good idea to keep from burning over the next couple of days if you live in this part of the country.
Pope Francis is speaking out from his hospital bed. In a letter published this morning, the Holy Father says his lengthy illness helped make the absurdity of war clearer to him. The Vatican released this photo of the Pope on Sunday, the first since his hospitalization for a complex lung infection and double pneumonia. The Vatican is also denying rumors of a nation. In fact, Buckingham Palace announced today King Charles will meet Francis on April 8th at the Vatican. Forever 21 is filing for bankruptcy for a second time. The retailer cites increased competition from foreign retailers amid the trend of fast fashion. Since the pandemic, the company struggled to keep up with Chinese-owned retailers such as Shein and Temu. The company says it could sell some or all of its assets if it finds a buyer. In the meantime, it will hold liquidation sales at its U.S. stores. It's a jellyfish experience like no other. A new exhibit at SeaWorld San Diego is diving into the lives of the so-called jewels of the sea. Spectrum's Bree Steffen shows us what all the buzz is about.
In viewing the captivating beauty of jellyfish, Mike Gunn says it was important to give visitors a unique way to look at the different species, like these upside-down jellyfish.
Guests are going to be able to crawl under, and we think it's going to be a great place for little kids to come and see a neat perspective.
A first of its kind at any SeaWorld park, the Jewels of the Sea exhibit is an all-new immersive aquarium diving into the mysterious world of jellies. Mike is the education and conservation manager at SeaWorld San Diego. He says highlights include a walk-through living archway filled with jellyfish and one of the largest jelly cylinders in the country. He says people can often overlook the importance of jellyfish to the overall health of ecosystems, as they help to control plankton populations and serve as a food source to other species, balancing the food chain.
One of those keystone species where when you see the ocean in perfect harmony with each other, everything's in balance, and the jellyfish help keep it that way.
The crown of the attraction, though, is behind the scenes, where Charles Trotner is raising and caring for jellyfish in the propagation program.
They're, I think, the closest things we can get to like sci-fi aliens that we can get on Earth.
Charles says most jellyfish only live about a year, and SeaWorld is working with aquariums across the U.S. to propagate jellyfish to share and learn more about them. He says caring for jellyfish at all stages of life is a delicate matter, requiring constant monitoring of a complex filtration system, temperature, and feeding schedule.
Because they're 95% water, whatever is in the water will end up inside of them. So it's really important that we get our water parameters right, otherwise it can directly impact them in a very short amount of time.
Charles says they start off as a small polyp, moving into bigger tanks with each growth stage, showcasing the beauty of marine life and their commitment to conservation.
It's important for us to be able to propagate our own colonies of jellyfish, so that way we can minimize our impact, and we can also end up filling these exhibits with animals that we know have had no detrimental effect on where we took them from.
Mike is proud of the propagation program they've developed. He hopes everyone can see the magic behind these enchanting animals.
Jellies are incredibly important to the overall health of the oceans, and they're darn fun to look at.
Combining education and entertainment to create lasting impact. Steffen, Spectrum News.
Tickets are now on sale for Jewels of the Sea at SeaWorld San Diego. And don't forget, you can always stay connected with us here at Spectrum News by getting your national and local headlines on the go. Just download the free Spectrum News app. It's available in the App Store and on Google Play. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Your Spectrum News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. Stay with us.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
It's
game time at the arena, and 20,000 fans are looking for a win. With an ultra-high-speed network and seamless Wi-Fi, fans can get in the door fast and share the game's best moments in real time. And with Spectrum Business committed to keeping them connected 100% of the time, they won't miss a second of the action. A secure, reliable connection from Spectrum Business means the fan experience is a guaranteed win.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back. To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has labels, that's a love we can all fight for.
Women are bad with money. That's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now we've got something to say. Save it.
It's time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Until we're no longer 80% more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement. Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault. Then, the funds. Learn how to save for your retirement at WeSaySaveIt.org.